Little deaths, little births. The little dyings that free up our hearts and minds. By the inspiring Christian. Bruce Lee once said that to learn to die is to be liberated from it. He wasn't wrong. When we meet with confusing, difficult or challenging experiences at an early stage in our lives, which we all do to varying degrees, and being the beautiful creative souls that we are, we often create stories and develop defensive behaviours which shield us from the pain associated with that experience, which subsequently develops into a pattern of interpretation and action which doesn't quite reflect reality, but which we continue to use to help protect us from, explain, and navigate the world around us. Unchecked though, unfortunately, what our developing minds used as a shield becomes a form of dysfunction in adult life, which can lead to living an existence which is little more than character acting. Useful for your local amateur dramatic society perhaps, but not over-handy in developing into a mature, well-balanced individual contributor to truthful living. Again, we can see this in everyone we meet to some extent, so you can be sure as anything that it's also present in you. If you are willing to be honest enough with yourself, see it and accept it. As tough and time-consuming as it is, there are numerous techniques that can help begin to break down those face-saving deceptions and illusions, and the wonderful freeing of the heart and clearer perception that comes with it. I will briefly mention, though, what it's not. There are many people who turn to alternative methods of healing. And from what I've seen and experienced, these are largely not worth a penny spent. Many people would prefer, of course, to have a healing, to go to a spiritual therapist and receive a treatment which makes them feel a little special, like they're being worked on, and maybe even get a little mystical experience to boot. How wonderful that all is. But the upshot is, it doesn't really heal you. In fact, extremely rare is the practitioner who can do that for you to some extent. Although in reality, of course, it is only God who can heal. But you have to show your sincerity and willingness to attempt to do the real work for yourself. No one can do it for you. Only then do you really understand it. Only then can you really understand others. A quote from Jesus in the Bible, that great source of truth and wisdom, highlighted this almost 2,000 years ago. And why do you look at the speck in your brother's eye, but do not consider the plank in your own eye? Or how can you say to your brother, "Let me remove the speck from your eye, and look, a plank is in your own eye"? Hypocrite, first remove the plank from your own eye, then you will see clearly to remove the speck from your brother's eye. There are many gains here then. Not only does doing the real work for yourself heal you, free up your heart, and bring you closer to truth, it also helps you see clearly how best to help another, should they wish that help from you. If not, you may at the very least bear with their burdens a little more compassionately. The work then. In my practice, success in this work feels like experiencing a little death. But what dies was never real in the first place. One might assume that it would be simple to kill off something that's not real. But apparently and evidently not. It is a sophisticated and delicate operation, requiring not only persistence but patience, not only real honesty but real compassion, and much, much grace. the end result of application, creates in oneself an embodied clarity, realization, and awareness, offering such a release and cleansing of the heart that I know of little else that is so useful for helping us to navigate a more real, authentic, and peaceful existence, as well as providing a pathway to greater wisdom and understanding. Not doing the work usually involves repeatedly splashing and thrashing around in the dark, turbid, emotional waters of denial, trying not to drown. We suffer because we didn't interpret something clearly and correctly from the start. We may have been too young to do so and have not been able to recognize and dissolve that pattern, which will then replay itself over and over again throughout our lives. In this pain, there is something deeper that we do not wish to fully acknowledge about ourselves, about others, and about the human condition. And we use these old patterns of interpretation to create stories around the situation, trying to explain it away and distance ourselves from it, distance ourselves from the pain, trying to satisfactorily convince ourselves that we know what's happening and why it's so we can forget about it and move on. As waters can be associated with emotions, amongst other things, it is perhaps the admittedly somewhat dramatic analogy of the drowning man that may best help us illustrate the dilemma. We meet a situation which throws us into the deep end of the pool. We splash and thrash around in desperation, holding our breath, trying to stay afloat, trying not to drown, trying to avoid any associated discomfort, trying to explain it away to ourselves with a story, getting angry, withdrawing, doubling down, ignoring it, going on the attack, anything in fact rather than to meet the situation as it is. We see this in all of us. We all do this. It is part of the human condition. Here. What we often overlook is that the thrashing around itself is the pain, is the suffering, is the resistance which prevents new growth, and we suffer for as long as we thrash. This can last days, decades, or a lifetime for some people. It knocks the wind out of your sails. It knocks your shame. It knocks your pride. It knocks what you thought of yourself, and what you thought others thought of you, and what you thought about or hoped from a situation itself. It knocks at an awareness of the real relationship between what is and what should be. Exposes your illusory expectations, fallible assumptions, and childish behaviours. Don't worry too much about it though. That's just a description of most people's actions to varying degrees. Indeed, it can be quite tough becoming a grown-up. It's quite important to understand, though, that this in no way, nor can it be solely an intellectual exercise. We can tell ourselves how we should feel and how we should act. Live in the moment, pretend everything's all right. However, this is still part of the thrashing about, only a little more deceptive. Only by experiencing the full sinking into the painful truth, suffering, realization, and acceptance does something shift on the metaphysical level. Only this frees the heart and mind, allowing something greater, more truthful, to enter in. In her book, Living with Death and Dying, Elizabeth Kubler-Ross identifies 5 stages of coming to terms with dying. They are denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. Before acceptance can finally sink in, we thrash our way through the first 4 experiences. But this can, if we let it, eventually wear through our pain, either through sheer exhaustion at maintaining the effort to stay afloat and distanced, or through real work and a conscious, mature and embodied acceptance. Sometimes, without quite knowing how it happens, a part of you recognises the moment for what it is. Like when a mother in labour knows the moment for pain and pushing is over, and a new life is coming. For a brief moment you stop, and all becomes still, almost like time itself has stopped. It is a sweet stillness of understanding that the inevitable is reached, before the end ensues, and you let yourself sink into the calm, paradoxically painful yet peaceful, engulfing waters of acceptance. This is where real change happens. As the water becomes still, it becomes clear, and you see the story for what it is, a story composed of echoes of error, humanity missing the mark, echoes of a past that are now ready to heal. Roles are revealed clearly for what they truly are, and illusions that were once considered firm beliefs dissolve in the light of a truthful understanding. You realize with ease you can breathe underwater. The pain and attachment to the story dissolves out of the illusion it always was. This is a great freeing of the heart and mind, which brings much wider, far-reaching, positive repercussions and benefits on the whole of your life, in many different areas. Your perception sharpens, discipline and self-control increase. You understand others more and are able to resolve conflict with insight and love, and without confrontation. With the spirit of truth as fruitful guide, you breathe easier, you are deceived less often, and you live in a more balanced and embodied way, more peaceably with yourself, more peaceably with others, and more peaceably with creation. I can't imagine anything more worthwhile. And who wouldn't want that? If not you, then who? If not now, then when? What are you waiting for? Thanks for listening.